Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well. And today we've got some pretty big news that broke the other day, but another story that is brand new, at least to me, news to me because I've been kind of out of it all day. And that is the fact that not only is Kevin Feige rumored to, and this is something that broke from the Hollywood Reporter, so for anyone out there that's trying to say, oh, that's a bunch of fake news, it was coming from a, mostly reliable as far as pop culture news is concerned, at least as far as breaking news is concerned. I wouldn't say for opinion pieces or anything like that. There's obviously a bias there, even in their non-opinion pieces. But that is that Kevin Feige is being pegged to write, or rather to at least take over a Star Wars movie. Now, that seemed to indicate it was going to be a singular franchise, or rather a singular film within the franchise, most likely as a producer, most likely as, an executive producer, as the creative head behind it, which I think actually has some interesting parts to it, because if there's one thing Kevin Feige has been pretty good at so far, it has been a executive producer role. He's done a very good job running Marvel. Obviously, we can be very critical of the most recent films like Captain Marvel, Endgame. Obviously, I've got issues with both of those films. I would even say it goes far back as things like Black Panther because of the various issues and the various things that were being put into those films more so than any others. But Black Panther to me is better than, to me, it's not even in a discussion. Like Black Panther is like a B level film, and Endgame and Captain Marvel are just that C range and below, just in my own opinion, as far as screenwriting and everything else that goes along with it. And some people obviously aren't very, happy with my opinion on Endgame. But this is an interesting take nonetheless, because you're bringing in a huge name in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and bringing it into Star Wars, which, as we all know, has been struggling a lot lately because of the people currently running it. And so now there is a report coming out. And so this is not just a general rumor, but an actual report. So it's going to be interesting to see where it comes from. It's going to be interesting to see the source. And that's one of the reasons why I love John F. Trent over at Bounding the Comics, because he always makes sure it's very clear. This is a report. This is a rumor. Here's where it's coming from. You decide for yourself whether you think this is reliable or not. We're not going to try and spin anything for you, and you go ahead and take it with as much grain of salt as you possibly wish to have with it. And so we have this rumor now coming out, this report coming out that Kevin Feige's Star Wars movie is a sign that Kathleen Kennedy is out. Now, of course, we've been reporting on this for a long time, that we speculated that Kathleen Kennedy would be out because of just not only just Solo Star Wars story doing poorly, but also because interest in Star Wars has been at an all-time low. I mean, honestly, just go ahead and look to the trailers, compare it to other movies that have been coming out, and you'll see that the overall enthusiasm for this movie in comparison to other Star Wars movies is probably one of the lowest on record. I think that obviously Solo could probably beat it in that category, but the fact that Solo is definitely one of the things that led to the current state that we're in. Of course, Solo would need to rely on the things like The Last Jedi in order to get there. I think that we can honestly understand why this move seems to be indicative, fun word there, of some moving behind the scenes, some moving parts, some moving people behind the scenes. So let's go ahead and dive into this report just a little bit. So a new report indicates the newly announced Kevin Feige Star Wars film was a pink slip for Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy. Reddit user, so it's coming from Reddit, so grain of salt here, who claims to be a reporter who has worked in government and business for nearly 20 years, believes Kennedy was demoted with the announcement of Feige's Star Wars film. Muckrake reveal, Ryan Johnson, wait, what? Part is wondering, Ryan Johnson? There's an Ryan Johnson? This is just too much for me. Has written for the Boston Herald and CRN. It's unclear if the two are the same person. So anyway, so the Reddit user, so again, Orion Johnson, the Reddit user, take it with a giant grain of salt, says, if you are the president of a division of a company and the CEO takes the president of a more successful division and gives them your resources, personnel, and your IP, and has them answer to someone higher than you in the organization, then I hate to tell you this, but you have been demoted. This is what happened to Kennedy last night. Her 3-year contract has 2 years left and will expire in 2021. Now, we know that's when her contract expires. We don't know whether or not that is when she's going to leave. Honestly, at this point, this is just no longer speculation. We honestly just don't know what's going to happen to her in 2021. We know that Bob Iger, his contract's up in 2021, but you also know that he is leaving then. He's already made it clear that he's going to step down from that role. Kathleen Kennedy has not really seemed to indicate what's going to happen with her overall. I could see her leaving. I could also see her staying. I could see her being demoted. I could also even see her being promoted, because honestly, these people working in Hollywood right now, these people working in Disney, you can just tell, especially with what we just read in his most recent book, we know that they just don't care about the fans. They don't really work in a way that makes any type of logical sense as far as, you know, caring about fan bases and caring about general sentiments of your franchises. In them, it's all, of course, about money, bottom line, and, of course, about whether or not the image is being matched. And obviously, having Kathleen Kennedy, a strong female in the role as president of Lucasfilm is something that they want to desperately hold on to. As much as I would be somewhat excited about, to be honest, because I think it would take Star Wars in a new direction, unfortunately probably would still be a woke direction, but at least something new than what we're getting. As much as it would be exciting to see that happen under a Kevin Feige reign, after seeing him, what he's done with things like the Marvel films in the MCU, I think is something that is probably something that could bring some people back to the fold, something that could bring some people back. I know that there's a lot of people that have written off the MCU, have written off Star Wars, and hey, I'm right there with you. You all know I'm personally in full boycott mode when it comes to Disney films and Disney properties in general, as much as I possibly can, right? Because when you own so many properties as Disney does, it can sometimes not be entirely possible to do so. You know that I've spoken up very much against Disney as the evil corporation that I honestly believe it to be, and also, of course, against places like YouTube and Google and all these giant tech corporations, which I honestly think, hopefully, the day of reckoning for them, having this amount of power, this amount of unchecked power, it seems, finally comes to an end. But having all of this happen is still interesting nonetheless. He then speculates that Kennedy will more than likely not be working on Star Wars moving forward. Instead, she will be spending her time working on the next Indiana Jones film with Steven Spielberg. He points out that Star Wars will more likely now be run by Feige, Favreau, and Filoni. More than likely, her duties will be to run the indie project and her longtime collaborator, Steven Spielberg, as Feige, Favreau, Filoni take over Star Wars television and film projects. And there seems to be indication that at least creatively, those are the names taking over, at least when it comes to Filoni and Favreau. We know that they had a very heavy influence at Star Wars Celebration. We know that Filoni is, of course, full bore behind Clone Wars season 7. We know Favreau is firmly behind having the Mandalorian, and that Filoni is also even going to be doing some live action direction as well for that series, which to me is very exciting because I've loved everything Filoni has done in the animated world. But this is still interesting nonetheless because with those names being attached and now with Feige being thrown into the mix, to me it's amazing because now you've got the triple Fs here. You've got F cubed going on up here with Feige, Favreau, and Filoni, which could be a dynamic trio. It could be it could be the three amigos. It could be something that could work magic for Star Wars, could be the revitalization of Star Wars that it desperately needs. But it could also just be the same old, because at the end of the day, we know that every single person that's being brought on board is being brought on board by people like Bob Iger. And we know that Bob Iger has made it very clear how he feels about the future of these various franchises. We know how he feels about Star Wars. Or obviously we know how he feels about George Lucas and how he just really doesn't respect him at all, seeing that he decided just to crap all over his legacy and essentially lead him on to sell him his stories, knowing that full well that he would not have actually used any of them, but wanted to have them nonetheless. That way they couldn't actually get out because he knew the direction they wanted to go with it. So I think that this could be a good direction going forward. So, oh my gosh, Odin's saying something positive. I could say positive things, but I also always take it with a giant grain of salt because, one, we don't know if this information is going to be 100% accurate, and also, two, because obviously when it comes to people like Feige, Favreau, and Filoni, sometimes things don't work out the way they are. I think Filoni has a much better track record because as far as the series that he was fully behind, like Clone Wars and like Rebels, both series were amazing. Both series were solid and had great characters and great character arcs and just really don't have much wrong with them. Favreau has made some bombs. Favreau has made some bad movies. He is the one that was behind Lion King 2019. Yeah, it made a crap ton of money, but it was also a terrible, terrible, terrible rendition. Yes, the effects looked beautiful. Kudos to the visual effects team, but there was no soul. There was no heart to the characters. There was nothing behind those eyes of those characters like they had in the cartoons, which is something that is obviously very exclusive, it feels, to cartoons, especially when dealing with animals of all different things. So Favreau, though, is not perfect. And then we know that Feige is not perfect either. Feige's come out and has made it clear that the direction he wants to take the MCU is in a lot more of a woke direction. We also know that he's made and been behind and produced films that have not been very good. Some speculate that some of the best years of Marvel were not because of him, but because Marvel itself as an entity had a little bit more control, had some of the older people that had been on from the very beginning during the times of Iron Man and Hulk, during this transition period when Disney had bought and taken over, that maybe it was a lot of those people, a lot of those minds that led to some of the great Marvel films overall. And that it wasn't until, I believe, Thor: The Dark World that was the first full-fledged Disney-produced film, completely in-house Disney Marvel, with Feige behind the reins completely. And if that is indeed the case, well, we all know how Thor: The Dark World came out. Even though I myself am very biased towards that film and thoroughly enjoy it, I can still say that it is by far one of the weakest films in the overall MCU canon. And then, of course, we throw in other films like Avengers: Age of Ultron and things like that. They've been some good movies, though. Again, we obviously go to Ant-Man, which to me is one of the most underrated of these films. I personally love Thor Ragnarok, and I think that anyone has criticisms of it is right to have criticisms of it. But there have been good films. There have been bad films. And that's why I would rather have someone with that kind of a track record running Star Wars. It basically comes down to this. Obviously, would I rather have someone like Dave Filoni and Favreau themselves, taking full control? Sure. I think that Favreau is going to impress a lot of people with The Mandalorian. Again, I could be wrong on that, and just like with everything else, remember when I said, hey, in the Russo brothers we trust, and then they let me down with Endgame? Hey, same thing with Favreau. But obviously, Filoni has a much better track record there. But I think that most of us could say, if we had to choose between having Kevin Feige run Star Wars and having Kathleen Kennedy run Star Wars, I would assume most of us would say, if I have to choose between those two, I'm going to go with Feige every single time. Because even though you could say Kathleen Kennedy has all this history of all the movies that she's produced over time, she does not have that creativity. She does not have that creative center, that creative mind, like a Feige has. Feige obviously has a forward-thinking vision. As many issues as I had with Endgame, a lot of that stuff, story-wise, was consistent with what had came before it and was consistent with everything that happened after. Obviously, the story was a mismatch and was obviously a problem. The direction was problematic too, but that's beyond just the production, right? That's beyond the producer's role in some ways. Obviously, I think he's got more control than anyone else because he's a director and he's the head of the MCU and he's the head of Marvel. But I think that overall we would trust him a lot more with these characters, with the future of the universe, and also keeping the universe going on a trajectory that makes a hell of a lot more sense than this mishmash of nonsense that has been known as the sequel trilogy overall. So is Kathleen Kennedy gone? We don't know yet. Very similar to Rian Johnson. There's a lot of conflicting reports. We can make a lot of assumptions, but we honestly don't know yet. If she's going to leave, it's going to be in 2021 and not beforehand when her contract runs up. And if she's going to stay, she'll likely stay on in the same exact role as she is, and a lot of these things will be wrong, or she'll get promoted, or she'll get moved on to a very similar position. The point is that Kathleen Kennedy is not going to be fired. She's not going to be embarrassed. She's got way too much power, way too much clout, and also has way too many friends. That's the reason why she's now attached to so many of the biggest franchises of all time, including Indiana Jones again, because of her friendships with people like Steven Spielberg. And you don't have friends like that in very high places and then get thrown to the curb. And so that's why for anyone that wants to have severe justice, street justice happen with Kathleen Kennedy being thrown out on her butt and all that kind of stuff, that's just not going to happen. We gotta sometimes step back and take a realistic approach to it. But if it comes between these two people, I'm going with Feige every single time because at least Feige has a decent track record of films. At least Feige has a forward-thinking vision, which is obviously a hell of a lot more we can say than Kathleen Kennedy. But anyway, what are y'all's thoughts about this? If you had to choose between the two, in fact, you know what I'm going to do for this video? I'm going to have, in the eye above my head, there's going to be a poll. Who would you rather have run Star Wars? Kathleen Kennedy or Kevin Feige? I want you to vote, and I want your voice to be heard. I'll try and share those results with you in the next video. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Also, if you like this video, smash the like button, give me a subscribe, it helps me out a lot. And a couple of shout outs real quick. Thank you once again to Bruce. He sent me Last Starfighter, just picked that up today. I will let you know how it is when I find it. And also, he has a question of whether or not Starfighter, The Last Starfighter, is a film that I think should be redone. That with the modern technology we have now, if they could do a better version of that film. So maybe you can share that in the comment section below. But also I want to give a huge shout out to Bruce, because Bruce, thank you so much. My birthday's coming up on Saturday, and he gave me a very, very generous PayPal donation. And so I was able to pick up some games because he knows that I'm potentially, wink, wink, getting a certain game system. And so I was able to pick up a few games. And so thank you so much. I can't wait to start playing these games because I'm not supposed to know, but I do know about certain things. And so Mario 8, Breath of the Wild, and Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, because I'm a giant Pokemon fan nerd, are going to be played very, very soon. So starting Saturday. Anyway, thank you guys so much for your donations. And also thank you for watching, because again, you don't have to donate on this channel to be recognized. You don't have to give any money on this channel. Again, some people have been trying to make some recommendations, or rather some correlations and connections, saying, oh, you're just a quote unquote cam girl for certain organizations. And the truth is that we're not. We're people just like you. We have fun, we like to have a good time, and we stream because it's fun. If I stream to make money, I would be doing a terrible job, because a lot of times people don't donate much during the streams, and that's okay. I don't do the streams for money. I don't do these for money. I do it because it's fun. I love talking about this kind of stuff. Yeah, is the money a great perk? Sure. Are people sending me stuff like Bruce sending me stuff a great perk? Sure. But it's because out of the generosity of those people, it's out of the love of those people, it's out of the love of just doing this, and it's out of the fun of doing this too. This is the reason why we're here. There's a reason why Bruce sent me 2 copies of Captain Marvel. Obviously, one of them is going to be destroyed at one point in time. It's also because I can just go like, woo! And then everyone thinks it's funny, because it is. if you have a sense of humor. Now I just pissed off my dog, and I'm very sorry about that. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about this and all the things we talked about in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash the like button, give me a subscribe, helps me a lot. You are amazing, beautiful people. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless.